Hello viewers, my name is Stanislav. I'm here with my buddy Theo, and today we're going to be talking about his
2011 Range Rover, what we call the L322 model designation. Only a nerd would know that about this, but yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting video, kind of piggybacking off of the video that Stan did about his Boxster. We're going to be it's going to be a series of validating our car purchases. So
how long have you had it?
I've had this about 8 to 9 months, give or take. It's been pretty solid throughout that time period. We've done about 5,000 miles on it, I believe. It's at 105,000 now, so we got it around 100,000.
Were you worried at all about buying something like this with that high mileage? Because I know like the lore.
A civilian, an amateur might be worried about that. But you know, I've discussed this before, I don't know on video or not, but I do not care about reliability in cars. I think it's extremely overrated. It's not something I'm concerned about. I think in general, once you kind of come to the conclusion that a car is a liability in every way, shape, and form, financially and everything else, and all cars suck in their own way, and they're all gonna break at some point. So you might as well have one that you enjoy living with, as long as it doesn't completely paralyze your ability to have money and to go places. But so far, the old girl's been good. It hasn't had any issues. From time to time, it has been asking for coolant, but I don't think that's a big issue. I think that might just be like a $1 or $2 pipe fix, but it could involve some labor. But I'm not really worried about it yet. The brakes are a bit squeaky. We'll probably replace those at some point, but other than those two small things, the car's been absolutely perfect. It's a great spec, I mean, if I do say so myself. We were very lucky to find this particular spec when we did. I initially wanted a green one because that's what you get with a Land Rover. You want a green one.
Kind of get that British racing green.
Yeah, exactly.
Interior.
A Tonga green, I think they term it, with a tan leather interior. But to me, this is about as good as it can get, aside from that. The Baltic blue exterior, the dark blue interior with the white piping. It's absolutely lovely to spend time in.
And it's held up really, really well.
Yeah, it's in great condition. I mean, we got very lucky with it, again, I'll say. The interior's in great shape. The seats look pristine. There's a bit of markings on the headliner, but if I really wanted to, I could get that off pretty easily. But I have not cleaned this car at all, as you can see. And that's kind of these cars' identity, I think. I think they should be dirty, although it has like a city grime on it rather than like a countryside muck. But I mean, that's the life that it lives. It gets a lot of work. It gets driven a lot. I think my parents, I should say, have an L405 Range Rover, so the model designation after this. I think I want to talk a lot about the differences between those two cars. A lot of people would say that this is kind of peak Range Rover because it really encapsulates the idea of luxury with like all-out capability and ruggedness. It has a quality of ruggedness to it while maintaining a supreme level of luxury. And I think Range Rovers have kind of pioneered that category, obviously, and it's kind of become a staple even outside of, you know, car terminology. Speaking about the comparisons and the similarities and differences between the L322 and the L405, I think with the L405 you get it's a lot more luxury focused. I think it brings more of that the British elegance, like, I don't want to say Rolls-Royce-ish because that's kind of an exaggeration, but it is a lot more of a luxury car, I think. While I think people do certainly underestimate the L405's off-road abilities, especially, you know, just by sheer advancement in technology. It has, you know, you get stuff like the weighting sensors and just overall, I think, better terrain response systems, I should imagine. But this is really, people like this L322 model because it is that perfect combination of luxury and rugged, you know, off-road capability. And I like it for that reason.
How's it been living with this for
Living
those
with
few
this
months?
has been very lovely. I think having the context of living with an L405 for a while, it kind of has that similar vibe to it. I think getting into this car for the first time, the first thing I noticed was a patented Range Rover design feature is the low windows. So, and the really great visibility that you get from having a low window line. You can just see everything.
And I've noticed that because I think this is the first time I've actually been in this car with you driving, and I really did enjoy how like open it was, how much light is actually in the cabin. I do think the interior color choices help with that, kind of distribute the light, but it's just a very, I could see why this car is as popular as it is, especially amongst the people that will never really off-road it, but people that will just use it for like urban off-roading and parking lots, you know, because you'll get to see everything.
Yeah, somewhat like we're doing now.
Exactly.
But, I mean, it is just an extremely comfortable car. It is a luxury car that just so happens to be able to do a lot of off-road things.
Kind of before it was cool too.
Yeah, exactly.
It was getting cool around that time, but
yeah, and I think again, going back to the comparison with the L405, the doors feel thinner on this car, if that makes sense. So it feels less bulky in a way. You can see like every corner of the car. This car feels a lot smaller to drive than it looks, I will say that. I know you mentioned how big it was when we were setting up the camera, but I think that's something that really kind of disappears when you get behind the wheel, which is really interesting. That being said, I've only ever driven very large vehicles. I learned to drive on a 2005 Suburban, so my concept of size is kind of...
it's basically like a hatchback compared to the Suburban.
Yeah, exactly.
I love the tailgate.
Yeah, this is the, if not any other reason, this is why you buy one of these. Have a sit on the back. That being said, I haven't done this a lot, actually. This is the...
I hope these struts are good.
Yeah, no, this can hold some amount of weight. I think we're fine. And it has been very rainy here. So if it were to start raining, we have a nice canopy of glass tailgate above us and a nicely carpeted... And one thing, I mean, not for nothing about these cars, the carpeting on Land Rovers, it's the best of any manufacturer. Maybe, especially for cleaning is what I'm really talking about.
And you have experience doing that.
Yes, I do, but I have not, I don't think I've ever cleaned this car yet, going back to that. I don't know if I have, but it's great. I guess we can...
We'll go take it for a drive.
Yeah, we'll go for a drive.
All right, here we are in Theo's Range Rover here. I'm about to go on a drive.
Everything is okay now. Once you step inside of here, everything is nice. It's nice and quiet.
I will say it is very nice how like clear I'm hearing my own voice in here.
Yes, it is extremely well insulated in here. As I was saying to Stan on the way over here, not to sound very pompous, but whenever I'm in like a normal vehicle, especially at highway speeds, you can really tell the difference, like how well this vehicle handles sound deadening. And like, it's one of those cars where you can go a lot faster than you think you are going.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think it just adds to the level of luxury. I think when you think about Rolls-Royce, not that I'm comparing this to a Rolls-Royce, one of the most important aspects of a luxury car like that is silence. And this is pretty quiet. It's not as quiet as an L405 or the current gen Range Rover. Not that I don't know anything about that generation of car. I can only speak to the L405, but that car is quieter than this, but I think that just says how good that car is. So without further ado, let's start this sucker up.
Tell me a little bit about the motor as we start moving.
The motor is a Jag 5-liter V8 supercharged. I will say, I don't know if this is the engine configuration to have with this car. I think the 4.4-liter V8 will probably be better because this is very bad on gas, as you can imagine.
I was about to say, when we left like 3 miles away, it said 77 miles remaining, and we've been idling here for 45 seconds, and it's at 70 miles. This is empty.
It is, yeah. And I think before I got to your residence, it was at like 82. So that is the issue with this car. I would say if you can find a diesel, buy a diesel. And it doesn't make, like, this car, I don't drive it fast. I mean, it is fast, but I don't drive it fast because there's no point. That's not what the car is about. It sounds, all Range Rovers sound like diesels, by the way. So the engine doesn't matter. I mean,
I was going to say, though, like, I'm shocked how much of the engine I can actually hear. I was kind of expecting to be a little quieter, especially just sitting.
Yeah, it takes a second. Like, this car, upon startup, for the first few minutes, especially when driving, it kind of has a diesel-y sound to it.
Right.
But yeah, I guess we'll head out.
All right.
We'll go for a drive. Take the parking brake off. Yeah. So
What's the horn sound like?
Splash.
Perfect.
Nice and gentlemanly. So we're splashing through some puddles here. We only got yelled at once. Or not yelled at, but
Questioned, interrogated even.
What are you boys doing down here? It was a man in a GMC truck.
Well, he's doing real work.
Yeah, get your little English ass on. Okay,
Oh boy, we're supposed to
Across
make
the
this
tracks.
right across the tracks.
That's
Oh, we're
good.
fine. We're fine. So, I remember. Oh, that's a old Charger. That's like a whole police fleet back there.
Yeah.
Huh. But like you were saying, is there adaptive ride height to this?
There is. It does have air suspension. The bloke that sold it to us said that it had been recently replaced, but I did not see that on the Carfax. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it works. That's one thing that people always say you should watch out for with these is the air suspension likes to become broken. It works, which is all I care about.
It's comfy.
It is comfy, of course.
The body roll isn't as bad as you would think for as large of a vehicle this is.
It's not great.
It's not great. It's definitely there, but I thought we'd be swaying. Like, I thought it'd
Yeah.
be grabbing on the handle a lot more often.
No, you don't want to take a corner too quickly in this, I will say, because the body roll is there. By all means, it is not a sports car.
It's an SUV.
I don't even like to call it an SUV because, I mean, to steal this terminology from the Top Gear magazine, they refer to a Range Rover as a go anywhere luxury car, and I think that really suits the nature of the car really well because I think it is it is all of those things, and to this point, one of the most important things about, I say that important a lot, but
Well, it's an important car to you.
yeah, it is. And one of the reasons why I like this generation of Range Rover so much, the other ones have it, but I think this one is really the king of this category, is this car it doesn't look out of place anywhere. It looks correct whether you're in a field, back there under an overpass, in front of a nice hotel. That is what makes this car so cool to me. I think that the only other car that has that identity would be a G-Wagon. the brakes. The brakes are a bit...
That means they're working.
Yeah, we know we've stopped. It does that. I would say probably the only car I would get to, if I were to replace this, would be like an early 2000s G-Wagon in silver. I really think that's the only other car that accomplishes everything that this does, although those are nowhere near as nice on the inside, I would say.
Kind of going off of that, I think this car, especially for the era 2011, this is like it's true luxury, you know? Because this car new was what, around $100,000 with this configuration, roughly, more or less.
About, yeah.
And you know, it kind of shows. Everything is so well built together. The materials in here are excellent. Like you said, the carpet, even when I sat on that tailgate, I realized that we have a Mitsubishi Outlander that also has a split tailgate. You're sitting on hard plastic.
Yeah.
And, I just didn't think about it until you mentioned it up. I was like, this is actually kind of really nice.
Yeah.
And, everything, the only thing that looks dated in here, I think, really is the infotainment.
Yes.
But that's going to be a common thing, especially with that early kind of turning into integrating a lot more computers and just screens into vehicles around this era, because no one really knew what they were doing. We're still in that kind of awkward phase of development when it comes to
nice L405.
Nice little L405.
So that's how you know. Good choice, man. He looks like, unfortunately, the kind of guy that would be driving that. But in the United States. But yeah, to Stan's point, I mean, that is unfortunately the worst thing, without question, about this car is the infotainment. It has Bluetooth, but only for calling people on the phone, which is such a 2011 thing. But I don't think we really realize that.
How long ago 2011? How much has changed since 2011?
Yeah, like in 2011, nobody used Bluetooth to play music, and you were still using like Pandora. So yeah, it does not have Bluetooth in that capacity. So I have a transmitter, but it's absolutely terrible, so I don't use it. I do like the physical controls in here a lot. Yeah,
the switch gear on here is great. It reminds me a lot of what the Ineos Grenadier is doing.
Yes,
right now.
Good point, Stan. I think the buttons here and the knobs and switches have to be one of my favorite parts of the interior. I think they really showcase what the car is about and its ability to just work with anything. I mean, you can turn all the switches and buttons with gloves. There's no capacitive anything. You don't have to go into the screen to put your heated seat on. Just good old-fashioned knobs. Again, there's the brakes. The clock is great. It reminds me of like a pilot's watch.
It has a very like airplane-esque feel to it, like a high-end personal jet you'd have. Again, I've never been on one.
Yeah, it's like a Saab.
Yes.
But yeah, I think the buttons are easily the highlight of the interior, especially for the driver. I have not done a lot of passenger riding in the passenger seat. I do a lot of riding in the back, which I can say it's not as comfortable as an L405, but that being said, not a lot is. So I think you're not really losing anything on that front. But
the gauge cluster here is great too. For again, I would have thought this car was a lot newer if it wasn't for that infotainment. Like, even the gauge cluster looks really modern to today's standards. Maybe besides how vibrant the colors are, but this is also from 2011.
Yeah, I think so. This is 2009 or 2010 was when they did the facelift for this generation, which is when you get the screen here for the gauges. And I think it looks great. I think you don't really recognize that it's even a screen, which is really good. I think when you're talking about screens in cars, the resolution is very important. But then again, it doesn't do much aside from the important stuff.
This car suits you.
You think?
I do think this car suits you. Just seeing the way how you sit in here, compared to the Boxster, I think.
Yeah, it's very relaxing. It is unfortunately a car where you kind of have mental lapses. Yeah, it's just very comfortable. I've never been car sick in this car that I can remember. I think that the windows being very low helped out a lot.
Right.
Great visibility. It's easy to park.
These are massive windows. Like, these are huge.
Yeah, I think you realize that when you get in here, having not been in one of these before, especially this generation. Again, I think the current gen Range Rover, I don't know the model number, but you can see how the windows have shrunk. And I think that's kind of a shame because you start to lose the true design identity of a Range Rover. I think if you look back at the original Range Rover Classic, you can see shades of that in this car, certainly. With the current gen, not as much. I mean, of course, that's a natural just evolution of design, but I think that's why people consider this to be peak Range Rover. And at this price of, this car was 18 grand. I don't know what else you would get, especially if you want like a luxury vehicle.
Because people at this era were cross-shopping this with what, a Q7?
Yeah, Q7 or really
X5.
an X5.
But the interiors of those, I don't think even hold like anything close to how pleasant this is to look at.
I think that era, especially that era of Audi, is not my favorite. I think those interiors, they do not wear well, I can tell you with confidence. They don't wear well at all. I think BMWs really don't either, although if you know like older BMW interiors, you will recognize the smell when you get into this car because it smells like a box of crayons. Just design-wise, this car is maybe as good as it gets when talking about just the combination of luxury and ruggedness.
There's luxury, there's ruggedness, and there is a presence to this car, even being a passenger.
Right.
Like, it's not like I don't feel like it's a very commanding presence, but it's a very like, I am here.
Yeah.
We are, we're cruising along, we're having a good time, but we can
not-
also go pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, it's totally inoffensive, I would say, which is what I like. It is a gentleman's or a lady's vehicle, without a doubt. Tell us what you think of these cars in the comments. I'm sure, as there will be in any Range Rover video on the internet, people will say, "Oh, is it at the side of the road yet?" Not yet. It's doing well. I would get a Defender or an old G-Wagon, current gen Defender, old G-Wagon, and I think that speaks to my tastes. And
Thank you guys for watching.